So with that decision to open the rice market and end a 20-year waiver, this country now has to wrestle with tariff rates that'll determine how it protects the nation's farmers who are already under threat by cheaper food imports under a slew of free trade agreements. Well, joining me live in the studio to discuss this issue is our regular contributor, Dr. Byoung-joo. So, Dr. Kim, today's decision follows years of controversy over the pros and cons of opening up a market that for Koreans is synonymous with, food and psychological security. So, how do you best explain the government situation?
To simply put, the oversupply of rice and also possibility of price collapse or price decline, those are the key ideas for the government as it's advocating the tariffication of the system itself from the current system of offering MMA. MMA-based, the mandatory import is what you see on the screen here on the left side here. MMA meaning minimum market access. Because Korea has been postponing opening its rice market, as a WTO member, Korea has an obligation to accept these increasing amount of imports over the years now. And now at this juncture, those people who are advocating to continue on with the current system is saying that we should, negotiate with other WTO members to keep this system in place. But the thing is, when they say so, they say, well, we should take the case of Philippines case and then we should follow their case. The thing is, what happened in the Philippines is, as you can see on the screen here right now, Korea is importing about 400,000 tons every year, right? And the Philippines, they had to more than double, 2.3 times. They had to increase the MMA import. So that means for Korea's case, this is going way over 800,000 tons every year. The thing is, right at this point, Korea is already having this reserve of 500,000 tons of rice imports that have been imported under this MMA system. But on the right-hand side on the screen, as you can see, Korea's consumption of the rice is continuously decreasing. So clearly, if we continue on with this current system, according to the government, we can easily see the oversupply continuing and also price of the rice being materialized, obviously. So that is what I think is that's how we should summarize the situation right at this point.
Right. I think up until this point, the government and many interest groups have been debating over whether this approach, so putting tariffs and ending this waiver program, is better, or whether we should follow Philippines case where not the tariffs but extending a waiver, however, doubling or tripling the imports. So I suppose the tariffication is a more feasible way. So how is this tariffication going to be imposed? Okay,
let's explain with the illustration that we have prepared on the screen here. Basically, what's happening is if we compare the rice prices of different countries here, Korean rice price is what you see on the left-hand side at this point. This is Korean won per kilogram, so 2,189 won per kilogram. I think it was last year's number. And compare that with the United States rice. So Korea's rice, in this case, is about like 3 times more expensive. And comparing with Chinese rice, ours is about twice more expensive. Now, going with the tariffication rather than MMA system that we saw previously, this is a tariffication scheme here. If we go with, for instance, Korea succeeds in setting up 300% tariff. That's what you see with this kind of like a yellowish bar in the center there. That will be the rise of these prices of these imports, U.S. rice and then Chinese rice. And the purple bars, if Korea succeeds with in imposing 400% tariffs, which looks like a Korean government's goal at this point. Korean government will not release or disclose its goal at this point because it needs to be negotiated, but it will be somewhere between 300, 400 here. And so that's the price rise of the imports that we're seeing here. And the government is saying this is a better way to preserve our rice market rather than continuing on with the MMA system. As I mentioned, that will probably lead to further oversupply and possible, the further decline of the rice price. So this is what we see at this juncture.
So I suppose giving Korean rice the price competitive edge.
Exactly.
Right. we were initially expecting a united opposition from rice farmers, and that's not what we're seeing. It seems that they're divided.
Indeed, I think I noticed that's quite interesting because initially we were all expecting quite a strong opposition from the Korean rice farmers as well as Korea's political opposition as well. But now among the Korean rice farmers, we notice division. The traditionally tough or aggressive group called the Federation of Korean Farmers, they're saying switching to tariffication away from MMA system is not an option, and Korean government is making a mistake by declaring to make the switch here. They say we should continue on with MMA because of the argument that Hwang Ji has reported on, this food sovereignty and all this kind of traditional argument here. But however, a bigger organization, the biggest organization called Association of Korea's Agricultural Business, including big and small farmers here, they're saying, well, they recognize the necessity of having to switch to tariffication here, and they're saying government should totally focus on getting as high tariff level as possible. So indeed, well, it's quite interesting to see this slight division in terms of the position within among the farmers here.
Well, the first group that we talked about, I'm just curious, what is their argument in terms of, if we extend the MMA system, then we'll have to double, triple the amount of rice imports, and that would, negatively impact Korean rice?
That's a great point, and I don't have an answer for them here because, they're just making an argument the way I see it that will entail all these problems that we have already discussed here. So I don't have the details about, their response to those kind of possible problems here.
Right. So, okay, in general, what is the road ahead here in Korea, and both here in Korea and at the WTO?
At the WTO, by September, Korean government will have to report our, negotiating conditions that will be dealt with through the negotiations with the members of the WTO. And by January, if Korea is firm in terms of switching to tariffication, Korean government will have to impose these tariffs kind of like conditional upon the future negotiation with WTO members. It will be later finalized, and after that, when the negotiation with WTO members is done, National Assembly will have to come in to ratify it. And even before that, actually, before January, now Korean government will have to change all these small regulations at the lower level. A lot of work to do for Korean government.
I'll bet one of the key tasks for the Korean government is to, clearly explain to the public why this is the way that we should be going, and convince and persuade the public that this is the right way to go.
That's really true.
Communication has always been a problem, and I hope they improve on that.
I agree.
All right, Dr. Kim Byoung-joo, thank you so much for today.